the key to understanding other people is to listen first and to talk second. That's why this talk can also be called seek first to understand, then to be understood. It's a two-step process, but the order of the steps are really, really important. So the reason we want to seek first to understand is because people don't care how much we know until they know how much we care. That's a saying you might have heard. But it's really true. If people don't understand how much we care for the other person, how much we care for who they are as a person and valuing them, they're not going to care about what we have to say. And that applies to any conversation. So the key to this is learning to share, learning to understand another person's point of view before sharing your own point of view. So we don't want to force our view on others. We want to take a step back and think about, where is this person coming from? How has what they've gone through influenced their understanding and approach to the world? And how can I learn from that to influence my understanding? One of the deepest needs of the human heart is to be understood. Everyone wants understanding. Everyone wants others to care about them, to try to understand them. And that's what this is really getting at. People won't really open up until they feel that they're loved and understood. Often it takes one person to be vulnerable before the other person will open up and be vulnerable too. And that's why the key to this is to listen. Not talk, just listen. It's really hard to do sometimes, especially for those of us who like to talk a lot. But just taking a step back, not opening your mouth and just listening to what the other person's saying can be really, really, really effective and productive in the conversation. And not listening while judging at the same time, you know. Listening without judging, without giving advice, just trying to understand what the other person is saying and where they're coming from. There's a few things we don't want to do when we're trying to understand other people and we're trying to listen. And these are really important to avoid. So the first one is spacing out. So it's kind of like, oh, we're listening, but then we just, you know, don't really pay attention. That's really disrespectful. And people can notice when you're spacing out because they'll say something important and then they'll ask if you heard or something and then they'll be like, oh, what? Sorry, can you repeat that last 5 minutes? And exactly. So spacing out is not a good thing to do when we're trying to listen to people. Another thing is pretend listening. It's where we listen and we say, oh, okay, you know, those really short one-syllable responses. People can also see right through that. And it's not respectful either. But we tend to do it when we're thinking about something else, so we want to focus on what the other person is saying. A couple other ones, there's selectively listening, where we're only listening for certain words or phrases, and then we jump back into the conversation at that point. There's also word listening, which is where we only listen to the words that people are saying, and not the meanings behind the words, or the tone with which they're saying with them. And we also want to listen to what they're not saying. That's really important, because people speak just as much as with words as with non-words. And that's demonstrated by the fact that communication is actually 53% body language. When I heard that, I was just blown away. 53% of how we communicate to other people is through our body language. How we're looking when we talk, how we move our body, how our bodies are positioned. That's crazy. So being able to pick up on those little variations in body language is a really important skill to communicate more effectively. And 40% of communication is how words are said, the tone or the feeling that's behind the words. And only 7% is the actual words themselves. So those stats are like really mind-blowing, but I think they really give us some key insight into how we can communicate better with others and try to understand them. I want to give you an example of how important this can be. Can you go to the next slide? So look at these three sentences. They have deeply different meanings, but they're all the same words. I didn't say you had an attitude problem, versus I didn't say you had an attitude problem, versus I didn't say you had an attitude problem, right? It's all the same words, but the changing of emphasis on one of the words completely changes the meaning of the sentence. And that's the exact same way when we're talking about abortion, when we're talking about any issue. The way that words are said are invaluable to the progress of the conversation. And if we don't pick up on them, the conversation is as good as over. Because people aren't being understood if we don't pick up on the words in between the words. So that's really important to look out for. And that's also why I generally don't recommend having these type of conversations online or through texting, because this can't be conveyed, especially in a text. You can't like underline a word in a text. Sometimes it would be really helpful. But I think we've all had experiences where we've texted something to someone and they misunderstood it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. So it happens to all of us. And that's why I think for sensitive and complicated topics like abortion, the best thing to do is to talk about it in person. So I want to give you some examples of some real thoughts from real people about abortion and how we can understand people who disagree with us, because this is really key to what we're trying to get here to today, coming to an understanding. So last night, I kind of did a little experiment with some of my friends, all right? So can you go to the next slide? I asked a bunch of my pro-choice friends this question to get their response. I said, what is the number one thing you wish that pro-lifers understood about your position on abortion? I thought, I might get a few responses, but people blew me away. I got so many responses. A few people didn't respond, and that's okay. I said no pressure, but the people that did respond, whoa, it was crazy. I said, just a sentence is fine. Some people sent me like a whole essay. I wasn't really prepared to read that, but I read it, I responded, and it was really fruitful. And I want to give you some examples of what those actual answers are, so that, and you might recognize them from when you talk to people about abortion. And we can try to learn to pick up on some of the underlying tones or meanings. Can you go to the next one? So here's one response. This is how someone started off. They said, well, first of all, I'm glad you asked, because abortion is an issue that I'm not totally sure about. That's an honest answer.
Well said.
Exactly, right? A lot of people aren't sure about their position. And by that, asking them a question, by trying to understand them, it can actually cause a self-reflection in the other person that allows for a more fruitful debate, because it moves past the rhetoric. You know, it causes them to actually think about, well, what is my position? And it causes that for us as well. Another response was, I don't hold your views against you. You're not evil, and it's okay to disagree with me. Likewise, I am not evil. We both are doing things that we think will make the world a better place. And that's also true, right? Another thing that communicating and trying to understand the other person does is it humanizes both parties in the conversation, which is really, really important, because we don't want to see someone as just, an argument to win, but as a person to get to know and to relate to and to grow towards truth together with. Another response? This is kind of long. I'll just quickly read through some of it. I'm not an abortion advocate. I support choice. Taking away the choice of a safe and legal procedure does not stop abortions. It just sends those who need them back to alleys with untrained doctors or sitting in their own home with a coat hanger between their legs. Every woman has a story, and no woman wants to have an abortion. The decision is hard enough, no matter the situation, without strangers and legislation dictating what they can and can't do with their body. So that was a more direct answer, and that's okay, right? People are going to have a lot of these different responses, and I think it really points out, the fact that every woman has a story. We want to listen to what those stories are, and if we understand those stories, we'll be better able to relate to the other person. Can you go to the next slide? There's a couple more. For me, it's the case of rape. A woman should have the right to have abortion because it's their body and they should have a say in how to control it. Another one similar said, I want people to know that I'm an advocate for women because being able to choose what happens to their own bodies. So that's really a sovereign zone kind of argument. But also, that desire to have control, to have freedom, that's something that we can also pick up on when we're talking to other people. And that also indicates to us that we don't want to make our position come across as, because it's not, that we're trying to just control other people. Right? We're not just trying to increase government control on everyone and make it so that no one can make personal choices about themselves. That's the opposite of what our position is trying to convey. And if we can pick up on the fact that people really care about that, we're better able to respond and talk in a way that's fruitful and loving. Can you go to the next slide? I think the most important thing is that no one likes abortion. That's essentially what this one said. So,
well, yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah.
A few people I've encountered online or I've seen actually do like it, which That's an outlier though. Most people don't like abortion, but they think, oh, it's necessary to protect everyone's rights for their own bodies.
Yes.
So the fact that people think that indicates to us, indicates to people who are trying to understand them, that we shouldn't try to pin people as abortion lovers or anything, or we shouldn't try to pin them as wanting to kill babies. Most people, they have this view, they have the pro-choice view begrudgingly. They don't necessarily like it, but they understand that it's necessary for their mindset and way of looking at things to be consistent. And we can work with that. That opens up a path for more conversation because we can relate. We can say, I agree with you. I don't like abortion either. And then we can go deeper and say, but why don't you like it? Because it kills a child. And so getting at things like that can help progress the conversation in a more fruitful way. The next one. Well, as someone born in China, overpopulation is a real and scary problem. As society progresses, it's very likely that this severity will grow to be a global problem. So another thing that we can learn from trying to understand other people is their backgrounds. Where they came from influences where they are now. This person was born in China, and the problems that China faces influences his position today. So being able to recognize people's past and how it influences them now, and talk about that is really, really helpful. Can you just skip forward? Okay, the last one, it's a little more colorful. Can you go back? Quality of life matters more than quantity. An expletive life makes an expletive person. So I put this last because it really demonstrates how not everyone's going to respond with the same charity that you're trying to extend. And that's okay too, because it is a touchy subject and people get emotional about it. That's okay. Can you go to the next slide? I'll just finish up right here. So I want us to understand that a conversation is not a competition, but an opportunity to learn. So by trying to understand someone, we can better relate to them, better approach the rest of the conversation. And the last thing is that, remember, I call this seek first to understand, then to be understood. The second part is just as important. We want to make our position known, but in a charitable way, after we listen to what other people are saying. So I hope you can go out and practice this technique of just trying to learn. Try it in one of your conversations. Just listen and see what will come of it. I think you'll be surprised. Thank you, guys.